So with this exercise, we are supposed to do two things. Number one, we need to be able to work with absolute addressing and be able to also work with multiple worksheets. Now notice that this is your Excel workbook and it contains basically three worksheets. This is sheet number 1, and then this is sheet number 2, and then this is sheet number 3. Those sheet number 2 and 3 are still blank. Now what do we need to do with this? The first thing is we would be doing an example of absolute addressing for sheet number 1, and then we will copy the entire worksheet as sheet number 2 and then sheet number 3. Change some of the values and then get an overall computation for all the sheets based on relative addressing. Now for this exercise, we would like to also include additional stuff on your first worksheet, and that would be through the introduction of a commission. So you will be having a commission for the total east sales and total west sales, and commission for total south, and obviously the total commission for all. Now bottom line is we would like to anchor all the commission on a specific cell only, so that if we change that value, all the commissions will change accordingly. So in order to do that, let's try to type on cell E24. Please go to cell E24 and type the word commission. And after typing the word commission, okay, do the proper enhancement of the text by copying the format for total sales. So I'd like you to have commission be the same in terms of style with total sales here. So how do we do that automatically? Now click on total sales, and then what we can do based on what you've learned in Word, probably use Format Painter. So using Format Painter allows us to copy any style of a particular cell and apply it on another cell or group of cells, which we call a range. So at this point, we would like to click on Format Painter and then put our cursor. Take note of the cursor. It now has a paintbrush alongside your plus sign, and then click on commission, which will give us the same effect as total sales. So that is what you might have learned in your paint in your Word and using the paintbrush. Now just to make sure that commission, okay, will not bother the value, the cell where the value would be, we'll just put the exact commission on cell G24. Okay, so G24. Now I would like you to type 10 and then percent sign to indicate that the commission is 10%. So that will be the commission. Now we would now also go to cell A8, and in cell A8 type the word commission. Okay, so what we want is at this point to be able to compute the commission for total East first quarter based on 10% commission. Okay, likewise second quarter, third, fourth based on the value in G24. So how do we do that? Now I'd like you to go to the next cell, B8, where the result of the commission would be placed. And I'd like you to use now an equal sign to indicate that this is a formula. Equal sign means that this particular cell is a formula. And as a formula, you will need to have operands and operators. So part of our operand would be, we would like to multiply the cell B7. So let's click on B7. Notice that B7 automatically is placed in our equation. And then, since this is a multiplication, we would be using the asterisk as a sign for multiplication and point to the 10% absolute value or absolute reference, which is G24. Now, notice that we will have a problem at this point if we do not allow G4 to be fixed all throughout. What do I mean with this? Assuming that you're done with this, okay? This is now the common error when it comes to absolute addressing. When you press Enter key, notice that you will get a value that is 113.90. The assumption is, since this is the commission formula, you might want to copy it all throughout until max. The point is, in doing so, in copying the cell, we can actually right click the cell and select, point to the cell, right click it, and then copy, and then highlight the cells where you want to copy the formula. Now you can do a copy of a formula when it is needed. In this case, doing so, if I right click again on the range of cells and click on paste, okay, would amount to something like an error. Notice there's no value in C8. Notice also there are no values in the succeeding table. Now, let's see what happened on this particular action. Let's first click on escape to cancel this marker illustrating your active cell, and double click on this particular cell in B8. Notice that when you double click on a cell, particularly a formula, you will be shown a color coded formula that contains that gives you a clue which cells are involved in the formula. For example, okay, in this particular B8 formula, notice that we have here B7 in blue, and if you would look at B7, you will see that the border surrounding the cell is also blue, which indicates that that is the cell that B7 is referring to in the formula. Notice also that G24 is green, and when we scan G24, okay, notice that that is our commission value. The border on the cell is also green, which indicates that that is the cell referred to as G24. So whenever you type a formula, you will always be guided using color coding. Now, let's try to see what happened on the next cell. So when we double click on the formula, notice that C7 exists. That's just on top of this particular formula. But H24, if we go back to the commission, doesn't contain any value, because at this point, when we copied the formula, your commission portion adjusted one cell to the right. Instead of having H23 here, which should be the default cell for the commission, you have the next cell after the commission, which is blank. Therefore, when you compute C7 multiplied by a blank entry, you will get nothing. Now, notice we have a value error here on the cell. Now, the reason for this is that, okay, let me just double click on this. Okay, notice that in this particular example, F7 exists, but the other factor falls on put a 3D column chart. It falls on a text. So if you multiply a number with a text, obviously you will have an error because the value is not a valid number. So that is why copying the formula is not a good idea at this early stage, because automatically your commission adjusts to the right one cell every time you copy it. So what's the solution? The solution to the problem is you're supposed to always refer to this cell only and make it a fixed cell. That is where absolute addressing comes in. Absolute address means that it is an address of a cell that doesn't change even if you copy the formula somewhere else. It retains its original cell value or cell address. So, how do we do that? Now, at this point, let's go back to our original value. Okay, and this time, obviously, let's first erase the formula we have copied, and then go back to the first formula we had. Now, double clicking on the formula, take note that we are again B7 multiplying it with G24, and we want G24 to be fixed all the way. So what do? We would now have to go back to our formula and highlight G24. Okay, so let's highlight G24. We've highlighted G24. That means the commission. And then what? Press F4. Function 4. Press function 4. Now, notice that the change becomes evident. When you press function 4, the column G will contain a $sign before it, and the row 24 will also contain a $sign before it. This is the symbol used to indicate a fixed row or a fixed column or a fixed row and column. So if you want to make a row fixed, even if you copy the cell, or make a row and column fixed when you copy the cell, you put a $sign before it. Pressing F4 just made our task simpler. So highlighting the cell and pressing F4 puts a $, before the row and before the column. So what will happen now? Pressing enter would still give us the same value, but this time when we copy this cell, right click, copy it, and highlight the range of cells where we want to copy the formula, and right click, paste it. Notice that we now have values instead of blanks and value errors. So let's examine each one of this. Now, pressing escape just to relieve that marker from B8. Let's double click on C8. Notice that when we look at our cells, C7 is just above, but G24 still remains on the commission cell. And if we press escape and click on the last available cell on the formula, it would still point on the same location. So putting a $ before the column and the row gives you a fixed cell to work with. And in this particular example, this is now what we call an absolute cell, referred to as an absolute address with a $ before the column and the row label. Now, what does this do for us? Now, we know that the commission is 10%. What if the commission suddenly increased because of good sales? For example, there is an increase of 2%. So 10% becomes 12. And when we press enter key, take note of what will happen on all of the values on the commission. They all change automatically. So if you put a value in the commission, everything that is all formula anchored on that particular cell will automatically change. Now, your task would be the following: to do the commission for total west, total south, and obviously the total of all commissions. Computing by summing the commission of total east, commission for total west, commission for total south, to give you the total commission. And let's put total commission as what it is: total commission. Adjusting it a little bit to the right. So that would be the thing that you will do to complete this particular worksheet. Now, the next step is this. Notice that you were asked to actually work with multiple worksheets. So what you will do here is that you need to copy the entire worksheet on sheet number 2. And how do we do that? What we can do is, instead of highlighting all the cells manually, what you can do is you can just click on the corner. Okay, you can just click on the corner of this particular worksheet. This is the corner of that particular worksheet. When you click on that, it automatically highlights the entire worksheet. So what do? You simply now right click and copy, and then go to sheet number 2, and then right click, paste, which will give you an exact duplicate of sheet number 1. Now, you will also have to do it with sheet number 3 and paste the third worksheet copy. Now, what do you need to do with sheet number 1, sheet number 2, and sheet number 3? For sheet number 1, you don't need to do anything as of now. But for sheet number 2, this is what we need to do. So for sheet number 2, you need to go to sales template and edit the word template and type for $2,006. So we will be assuming that this is sales for 2006. And as it is, we would like to rename sheet number 2 as 2006. So we'll double click on this sheet tab and type 2006. So which now gives this cell a name, and it's called 2006. We also copied sheet 1 on sheet 3. So again, we'll retype or type over template and say of 2007. And call the sheet tab sheet 3 as, double clicking it, 2007. So after having these 2 sample worksheets, we would now like to change some values. We would like to change some values. Everyone should have to change the following value. Instead of 564, let's put it a negative. So in 2006, let us assume that the second quarter for Janice is a negative value. So we'll put a negative symbol as a sign that it is a negative value. Notice that by default, if you put a negative sign before a number, your number follows the format for negative. In this case, the negative symbol is a parenthesis. So anything inside the parenthesis is a negative value. So on another sheet 2007, let's do some just minor changes. Okay, let's have, for example, Jeff Gamble as negative for second quarter. Again, putting a negative sign before the value, we now have a negative figure for Jeff Gamble. Now, bottom line is, the reason why I'm asking you to do this additional sheets is so that we can demonstrate how to work with multiple worksheets. So let's go back to sheet 1, the original copy, and then call this as summary. So let's call the sheet a summary sheet. And at this point, do some changes with the values. We know that these values were the original values of sheet 1. We would like to get the sum of 2006 and 2007 and put them on this particular summary sheet. So what do? We can actually specify that we can add two values in different worksheet by using an equal sign and pointing to the right cell on the right worksheet. But before we do that, let's first erase the content of the worksheet, particularly the data values only. So I've highlighted from B4 to E6 and pressed delete. Likewise, I'm doing so with I'm in 2007. Let me just go to summary. I guess I need to change this. And then go to the data values for sheet 1, which is now summary, and delete the data values, not the formula but the data values. Notice that when I do so, your charts also react in the process. Now let's move on to B4. Now in B4, we want to add the first quarter sales of Angel for 2006 and 2007. To do so, we just need to do this. Let me just try to enlarge this process. Press equal sign and then point to 2006, particularly to the same cell B4 of Angel, and then press plus as a symbol of addition, and then go to 2007 and then point to Angel Sales first quarter again, same cell, and that's it. Notice that at this point the formula bar contains the following additional text. 2006 obviously is the name of the worksheet, and that B4 is the cell in 2006, plus 2007 is the name of the worksheet, plus and the cell B4 in 2007. So that's how we read this. Sheet name and then the cell. That's why it's important for us to change the name of our worksheets so that we know where we are getting the values. We're done with this and we just need to press enter key. And automatically take note that we now have a value coming from two different worksheets. Doing the same for second quarter of Angel Sale, pressing equal sign, going to 2006, second quarter, pointing at the second quarter of Angel Sale in 2006, and then pressing the plus key, and then going to 2007 and pointing on the same cell, second quarter of Angel Sale, and pressing enter key to end the process. Now you will have to do the same for all data cells until the last particular sales agent, Sheila Cortinez, gets to be completed. So that would be E18, press equal sign, click on sheet 2006, click on the same cell which is E18, oops, sorry, This is incomplete, so we need to press plus. Go to 2007, same cell, press enter, and that's it. So basically, what you need to do is to complete the data cells so that we can have a summary and eventually call this sales as sales for 2006 and 2007. And that would now complete this particular exercise. So you have worked on two things. Number one, using fixed address, which is called absolute addressing, and you also have made use of addressing by pointing on different worksheets, thereby working with multiple worksheets. So in the end, you will have a different chart altogether, and that at this point, after doing all the necessary changes, save your work and make sure you have a copy in your student folder. That is the exercise for absolute addressing and working with multiple sheets.